So we are going to start tearing down the AX5 transmission. The first couple of videos talked about taking the cases off, doing an inspection, looking at the damaged gears, see what kind of shape things are in. So now it's actually going to be time to take it apart. On this specific transmission, there's a couple of chip teeth here in the counter shaft that I want to replace. Other than that, I am actually going to do a full rebuild on it, but for this video, or these sets of videos, I'm just going to take it apart and have the whole transmission disassembled with the main shaft, the counter shaft. I'm going to remove all of the shift levers and have the bearings fall out, and we'll go from there. So, first step, I got it in my little handy dandy homemade stand. I have a factory service manual that I'm going to use for guidance, and I am going to begin. Step 1, there's 4 little caps here that are a Torx 40. Get those in there, pop them loose. Try to. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Fourth one's on the bottom. I will flip that up in a minute. So take those out. And I have a sheet of paper that I'm laying everything out on. Trying to make sure I keep the order of everything and I know exactly where everything came from. When I take this apart and I pull all the internals out, I try to lay everything out in an order. I usually kind of number things from like top to top. I call this number 1, 2, 3, and then there's the bottom one that we're going to flip up and get to in a sec. That's 3. And use a pencil magnet. And use that to pull out the spring and the ball. And pencil magnet, spring, and ball. Spring, ball. And then for the fourth one, I'm going to take the whole unit, flip it gently on its side, and it's right here. Get it off. That's number 4. Okay, so the next step is to pull the shift levers apart. On this specific model, there's actually 3 bolts. This one's on the reverse. I've seen on some of the some older models, this actually isn't a bolt, and this is an example here where the shaft actually has a pin that would have to be removed. I'm hoping you can see that. I'm just kind of winging it. So here we go. So we're going to actually take that apart, and those are 10mm bolts. And we'll just start by popping them all loose. Once they're loose, they usually come out pretty easy. last one. 3. Again, I will lay those out and go from there. Perfect. So the next step are there's a bunch of C-clips. There's a C-clip here. Again, I'm going to rotate a bit. C-clip here. There's a C-clip here. There is a C-clip kind of hidden here. I think you can get away without taking this one off. So we're going to start with these two. The first one's actually off, so I don't even have to take it off. The second one is right in line here, and I do it using 2 flathead screwdrivers. I'll just kind of get it in there. You gotta watch these. These things have a tendency to shoot across the room on you, so you want to see if you can be very observant. Okay, continuing on, I did actually manage to pop the clips off. What my issue was, I needed to find myself 2 screwdrivers that were about the same length. I had one that was longer than the other, and it made it quite difficult for me to actually get a good hit on it so that I could knock it off. But I pulled the clip. It's just a little tiny C-clip. There's a couple of them. You pull them off, and we go on to the next step. The next step that I realized is, in addition to pulling out those 3 nuts that I pulled off the shift rails, or off the shift rail, sure. There's actually one little pin that has to be knocked out as well. That's on this 3rd shaft down. And you just kind of use a hammer and a punch and you knock it back. Well, the way this is sitting, that rail out. That can come off. Hey. Let's go. Come off. This one comes off. This is your reverse. With it. And this little guy comes off. And then finally, the reason why this thing wouldn't pull forward, there's actually still a lock pin. I was trying to pull this forward, but I forgot that there's one more pin here. See if I can get a little bit more, or sorry, one more C-clip here. So rather than that, I'll just take it and I'll push it backwards instead. And out it comes. Once it comes, then this C-ring, this shift fork moves off too. Get that over. So as I'm taking items apart, I'm trying to kind of lay them out in a reasonably accurate order so that it makes it a little easier for me to keep track of the stuff. With the shift rails removed, I was fortunate enough that a bunch of the little balls didn't fall out. So now you're going to have to use my little pencil magnet. I'm going to get it in there and start pulling all these little balls out. Rather than going from that direction, it might be easier. Oh, first of all, I'm going to see if I can get this little shift lever out of the way. Just slide it and it falls out. Put it out of the way. Now let's see if we can get the rest of these balls. From here. One. Two. This one's a longer one. So it goes small, just a round ball, it goes a long ball. And it's kind of catching everything. That way, this one's a slightly shorter one. It's not a ball, it's not round. It's just a short one. Yeah, that's all for there. And there was a ball in this little shaft. Actually, there's a ball that's mixed in right there too. So we'll pull that one out as well. There's a little ball. And I'm thinking that should be all of them. Give it back to me. Across them. If there is more, we'll find them. So. The shift rails are off. Now it's time to actually start pulling a lot of the gear sets. So the first one is, I'm going to rotate it, and we have something called the reverse idler gear. There is a 12mm nut that I've already broken loose, so I'm just going to thread it out. And there's a little retaining clip that I just dropped, and I'm going to get my magnet. It's this little clip here. And then we're going to slide out the reverse idler gear. So we've already taken that reverse idler shift arm out of the way. So that was this thing. We kind of got it out of the way. So we're kind of, it shouldn't be too bad. You kind of slide this forward and you just kind of work it between the gears, and out she comes. And that is your first gear set. So now that we've done that, I'm going to start focusing on the reverse. And what the manual suggests is that there's a kind of a, if you kind of poke your head in, there's no way it'll show up on the video, but there's kind of a tapered plate that's kind of right behind the gear, and you're supposed to measure the clearance between that tapered plate and this main gear set. It's supposed to be between 10 and 30 thousandths. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's supposed to be between 4 and 12 thousandths of an inch. So I'm probably like 17, maybe 18 thousandths, which is out of tolerance. I'll have to address that when it comes time to put things back together. But next step in disassembly is to actually pull the fifth gear assembly off. It starts by having there's a C-clip here that we have to use the old screwdriver method on. So after some trial and error, I was able to pop the little clip off. I ended up using a couple of screwdrivers. I tried a variety of screwdrivers. I finally found a couple that seemed to get in there well and were able to grip it well enough for me to knock it off. Knocked it off. The thing about these things is when you do knock them off with a screwdriver, be ready, because they could go anywhere. They have a tendency to fly. So you got to make sure, keep an eye on it. Sometimes it might be a good idea to throw a rag or something under here just to actually, if it does shoot, it hits the rag and maybe doesn't fly quite as far. So we've pulled the ring, we've pulled that, we've actually checked our clearance, our tolerance seemed to be a little off. We'll have to address that. The next step is to lock the synchros. I want to make sure the synchros are locked, kind of hold things steady. And we're going to get a puller. So we pull our little thrust string off, lock the synchros, got ourselves a little handy dandy basic puller. And you get around that back gear, snug it up, and this thing usually isn't that tight, so it usually doesn't take a whole lot to get it to come loose. I have no idea what size that's going to be. That'll work. And find the ratchet. There. And it doesn't take too much to pull this off. Here she comes. bearings that'll fall. And here is the whole reverse gear hub. Looking at the gears on this, they look really good. And this thing actually looks like pretty decent shape. So just put it aside. And I'll take that little clip and keep it with it as well. So, there we go. So let's show this. Okay. Now, good. What we need to do now is there's a little cap here with 4 bolts that are all Torx 40s. Pop off the retainer cap. Alright, forgot this part. That's right, I forgot this part. With that, there's this and there's a little ball. Right. So when you pull that shaft off, there's a little thrust bearing and a little ball that comes with it. Just keep it all together. There we go, now we're good. And so we've got these things loose. And the instructions talk about removing these 2 bolts, which is a little, this is part of the reverse idler shaft on the other side. I kind of just left that on for now. Okay, so now we have 2 snap rings. Oh, you know what? Before we do the snap rings, just for the heck of it, let's 12 millimeter. Get out of the way. It's this little bracket. There's a little sleeve that sometimes comes off with this. In my case, the sleeve actually stayed in the intermediate plate. And that's fine, it can stay in there, no problem. If you're concerned about losing it, I think it should be pretty loose and it'll probably just slide out. I'll try using the pencil magnet on it. Yeah, comes off with the pencil magnet. So now I pulled it, I might as well just keep it with it. Slides into that. Slip, get those nuts started, just make sure things are attached. Okay, so now we come down to the snap rings. So unfortunately I didn't get this on video, but while I was struggling to get my little retaining clip off, I ended up actually having to get it almost in line with this other shaft so I could spread it and pull it off. While I was jiggling and fiddling, everything came apart on me anyway. The counter shaft, which kind of goes right through here, fell out, and also the input shaft also fell off. So really, in a lot of ways, that made it easier for me. It wasn't what I expected, but it came off. So now that that's all apart, it's really, and I got that ring off, I'm leaving this lower ring in, and the bearings are still in place too, so I'm just going to leave that all together. Oh, one of the bearings just fell out, but that's okay. And now we can just actually a lot of the instructions say grab your transmission, find a rubber mallet, which I will go grab. Plastic mallet, grab your transmission, just kind of tap, 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 jiggle, jiggle, there she be. And there's the whole transmission mechanism. This fits right on here. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of loose bearings that are inside of that have just kind of fallen out of the way, so I can't put that back on to show you for sure. And we have the counter shaft, the input shaft, and the main shaft, and intermediate plate. And that is your disassembly for now. I'm going to do an inspection, a further inspection, check some more tolerances, check the gears, make sure everything looks clean, or make sure they don't all look all chipped up. And then there's going to be some more disassembly in terms of pulling it all apart, removing the synchros, inspecting, possibly removing bearings or replacing the bearings, and we'll go from there.